Hi everyone, this is OC from Digital Adventures. Got another great project for you today. This one is going to be called a vertical cannon. So what we have is three different sprites. We have our cannon, we have a cannonball, and we have a target. So let me click on full screen and show you how this works. So we click on the green flag, we move right to left, we can shoot the target if they fall from the top of the screen. And if we get hit, we see we change color and the game stops. So what we're going to do is let me go ahead and show you how this works. So let's clear out this existing code from the target, from our cannonball, and from our cannon. And then we're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to start with the cannon. So what we're going to do first is we're going to get ourselves a when green flag clicked from events. And what we're going to do is we want the cannon to always start at a certain place. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab ourselves a go to XY block. For this one, what we're going to say is we want it to start in the middle of the screen at 0 and then at the very bottom. So we're going to put this at negative 123. Yours will vary depending on how you draw the cannon. The next thing that we want to do is within the cannon, what we did is we created a couple different costumes. And what you can see is I just sort of rotated the wheels a little bit. This is going to create a nice little animated effect. And so in order to accomplish that, the first thing that we're going to do is we want to always make sure that when the green flag is clicked, we're on costume 1. And then what we're going to do is we're going to grab ourselves a forever loop from control. And then we're going to nest in there a couple of if-then conditional statements. So let's see, we're going to grab 1, 2, and then 3. The first two conditional statements are going to be for our movement. So what we're going to do is we're going to sense whether or not a certain key space is pressed. This is going to be left arrow and right arrow. So let's do this. Let's do left arrow and then right arrow. And then for this, what we're going to do is when we press the left arrow, what we want to do is we're going to want to change our X by a certain value. So we're going to have this be a change X by a negative 10 when we press that left arrow. And then we're going to have it change X by a positive 10 when we press the right arrow. Next thing that we're going to do is we're going to get ourselves a couple switch costume blocks in here. And this is going to switch between costume 2 and costume 3. But in order to perceive this change, what we want to do is we want to add a wait block so that we can actually see that. So we're going to do wait of 0.05 seconds. And then we're going to do that same thing below. So we're going to grab ourselves another. And we're going to do a switch costume. And we're going to change this between costume 2 and costume 3. And then what we're going to do is, like before in control, we're going to add ourselves a wait 0.05 seconds block. And then the next thing that we want to do is we want to sense for whether or not we're touching the target. And if we're touching the target, what we're going to want to do is essentially we're going to die. So we're going to change our looks. And so what we're going to do is we're going to grab a change brightness effect. We're going to change this brightness effect by 50 so that we could see for sure that we've died. And then what we're going to do is we're going to change our Y and I'll change our X by just a little sort of jerk motion. So we're going to do change Y by. We're going to get a change X by. And then what we're going to do is we're going to grab a pick random so that it doesn't always do the same thing. So we're going to vary this between -5 and 5. Grab another pick random, -5 and 5. Basically to sort of make the game a little more spontaneous. And then like before, what we want to do is we want to wait so that we actually see the effect. So we're going to do a wait of 0.25 seconds. And then what we're going to do is we're going to stop the whole thing when all of that happens. All right, so that's what we need to do for the cannon. Now we're going to switch over to the cannonball. And what we're going to do here is a couple different things. So first we're going to grab ourselves a when green flag clicked. Next we're going to get ourselves a forever loop. And then what we're going to do is we're going to get ourselves an if-then conditional statement, or if-then else. And what we're going to do is we're going to be sensing for whether or not the key space is pressed. That's our fire command. And so when our key space is pressed, what we want to do is we want to have this cannonball show up. And we want it to basically do this repeat until it's touching the edge. So we're going to put a repeat until block in here. And then we're going to look for whether or not it's touching that edge. And so we're going to go into sensing. And we're going to grab a touching block. We're going to want this to do this until it's touching that edge. So prior to us starting this, what we did is we created a couple variables. We have a score variable, we have a velocity variable, we have a gravity variable, we have a falling variable. And so the first one we're going to do is we're going to grab that velocity variable. And so what we want this to do is we're going to have this move velocity steps. And then what we're going to do is we're going to have it change y by gravity. And this is going to create a nice little effect for us here. So go back to grab that gravity. I'm going to toss that in there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to nest two if-then conditional statements beneath here. So we're going to say one if-then conditional statement here, and then we're going to grab another if-then here. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a couple operators. So first we're going to do a greater than operator, and we're going to be checking that velocity condition. So we're going to want to know if that velocity is greater than 3. And if so, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to change that velocity by a negative 0.1. And then what we're going to do is we're going to check if our gravity is greater than a negative 8. So we're going to grab another operator block. We're going to grab gravity. We're going to check whether or not it's greater than a negative 8. And if so, we're going to change our gravity by a negative 0.1. And then the next thing that we're going to want to do is, if all this is not true, what we want to do is we want to be hiding this cannonball, and we want to set our gravity and our velocity variables to something. So what we're going to do is we're going to set gravity to 1 when this is not being met, and we're going to set our velocity to 13. You can vary these based on your preference, but this is going to give us a nice little effect. And then what we're going to have it do is we're going to have it go towards a cannon. So that it's always ready to fire. So we're going to change that there. And then the final thing that we're going to do is we're going to program our target. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over to target. We're going to get ourselves a when green flag clicked. And what we want to do is we want to initialize a couple things. So we want to set our score variable to always start at 0. And we want to set our falling variable to be a negative 5. And this is what's going to create that effect of that target falling from the sky. Then what we're going to do is we're going to hide. And then what we're going to do is we're going to get ourselves a forever loop. And inside this forever loop, what we're going to do is we're going to get ourselves a go-to XY block. And this go-to XY block is going to allow us to randomly spawn these targets. So we're going to do a go-to. We want the X to be between negative 200 and 200. And that's going to give us a nice left to right effect. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do a Y between 120 and 180. That's going to allow us to start off at the top of the screen. And then what we're going to do is we're going to create a clone of ourselves. And what we want to do is we want to create this clone every 2 seconds. We can obviously change this later, but for now, this is going to give us a nice falling effect for these targets. Now what we need to do is we need to give ourselves some instructions for what happens when we start as a clone. So the first thing we want to do is we want to show, right, because we hit ourselves before. Then we're going to get ourselves a repeat until block, repeat until. And what we're going to be checking for is a position, our Y position. And what we want to know is when our Y position falls beneath the negative 150. So we go into motion, we grab that Y position. We're going to put that right there. And then what we want to do is we're going to get an if then else. So we're going to go back to control. We're going to grab ourselves an if then else. And what we're going to do is what we want to be checking for is whether or not we're touching that cannonball. And if we're touching the cannonball, What we're going to want to do is we're going to want to create a nice little effect. So we're going to change our ghost effect. And we're going to change this by 25. And then what we're going to do is we're going to grab ourselves a weight block. And we want to be able to perceive this. So we're going to do 0.1. And then what we're going to do is we're going to hide. Basically to say that we're hit. And then what we're going to do is we're going to change our score by 1. Change our score by 1. And then if we're not doing that, what we want to do is we want to change our y by this variable that we created that's called falling. So we're going to toss that in there. And that's going to allow that, that variable to basically say that we fall from the sky. And at the very end, we want to make sure that we're deleting these clones. And so let's click on full screen. Let's see how this works. So what we see is the targets coming down, and we can shoot them and they go away. We also see that nice little animation effect with the wheels turning. It gives us a sense of movement. So we see that our score increases every time we hit a target. So hope you all enjoyed this project. Give us a like, a comment, or a subscribe, and we hope to see you back for the next one. Thank you so much.